In politics, coalitions are the art of uniting diverse voices for a common cause. Fragile, yet powerful. Lyndon B. Johnson. All right. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I'm your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. Okay. Like, what in the world? This morning, I was like, all right, I'm going to be like 7:35. I know there's been some critique of my timeliness, right? The whole wizard joke that people were mentioning in the comments the other day. And I swear to you, the show was supposed to start at 7:35. I came in and I was clicking all my buttons and I was in Rumble Studio and then it just like disappeared on me. It like literally just disappeared. I was like, what, where did because I had set up the show and then it was gone. And I was like, what in the world? So I don't know what happened. So then I went to start it over and it gave me this weird error message. It was like, you can only set up a show 192 hours in advance. And I was like, what? And so then I fiddled around with it some more and it finally got to work. So I don't know what's going on. Hopefully there's no problems with the stream today, but we'll see. I guess, I guess Rumble is acting a little wonky. So anyway, and by the way, you may not notice it, but this is a tired dad today because I was on the Swampcast show last night. Some fellow Floridian podcasters, and I got on the show at 10 and stayed on there for like 2 hours. So the if you're really interested in seeing the show, so Mike Termott was on there before me. He was on like from like 9 to 10, and then I took up the rest of the time. And so if you want to check that out, the links to their channel on all their socials are in the show notes. So go check that out. All right, today we got to talk about some serious business because the story is now broke, right? I joined the Republican Liberty Caucus. Now, let's be clear right up front. Republican Liberty Caucus, not the Republican Party, okay? I still remain and intend to remain registered libertarian. So let me tell you what happened, okay? few weeks ago, I was somebody reached out and they're like, "Hey, DL, want to have a private conversation with you." Okay, what do you want to talk about? And they're like, "A bunch of us are looking to join the Republican Liberty Caucus," and I don't really know much about the caucus at this point. So I'm like, "Okay, why? What's going on?" And they're like, "Well, we're frustrated with the Libertarian Party, and we feel like our efforts are basically spinning our wheels." Okay. And I get the point because I've been feeling like that for a while myself. Not so much locally, but somewhat, but in a different way. I'll get to that in a moment. Um, so then I have this conversation. I'm like, hmm. They're like, some of us are going to join the Republican Party and join the caucus at the same time. So they're like, we're going to join we're going to go over to the Republican Liberty Caucus. I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know about joining the Republican Party. I think it's for me, right? I think I'm a bit too radical for them. And so I was like, I'll have to think about this. So then somebody else reached out and they called and I talked to them. That was actually Mike Tremont. And we had a conversation. We agreed on some things and I was still kind of skeptical. I was like, I don't know. Let me think about this. And so then a few days later, I just kind of got this idea in my mind. So I reached out to Mike Tremont and I was like, hey, can you put me in touch with somebody who's actually in the RLC? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. So I ended up talking to one of their national officers. And good conversation. And my first question, like the biggest question that I had, I said, what is the mutual benefit here? Right? I'm not just going to move over if I don't think there's a benefit. Um, I know sometimes people rage quit the party. That's silly. That's juvenile. I'm not rage quitting a party. I'm going to make my actions deliberate. That's what this podcast has been built on. If you go back to like my very first episode, the very first one, I talk about doing things and making decisions deliberately. Now, we don't always I'm human just like the rest of you. So we don't always make decisions rationally, deliberately with a lot of thought. Like sometimes you make a rash decision, sometimes you make a decision in the moment and then maybe you have to walk it back, maybe you just have to live with it, right? It depends. So, but in this particular case, there was no there would be no excuse for a rash decision to just be like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Let's do it. So, so I had this conversation and I'm like, all right, what's the mutual benefit here? What's the expectation of me? And I told everyone, I was very clear up front. I said, if I come on over, let me tell you, my voice, like the positions that I hold, I will not move them. Right. And I will not change the forcefulness in which I speak them. Now, if somebody wanted to say, DL, you dropped a profanity on your show, which I tend to, I try not to do, but like, let's say somebody said, hey, um, the, the professionalism of your, podcast or your tweets, or something that you said, um, we don't like that. Okay, maybe I'll consider that, right? Like if I were to tweet something and use the F word, which is really like it's limited. I don't do it very often, right? But if I were to do that and somebody would call me out on that, I might entertain them. Now, again, I try to do things deliberately. So the likelihood that I'm going to be like, you know what, you're right. I shouldn't have done that. That's pretty low, but it's not zero. Okay. So so for me, whatever, like however long you've been watching this show, expect more of the same. I'm not gonna just this morning, I was giving a little bit of hell to a local Republican because I didn't like the bill. The bill that I did for the bill review that I did for Jacksonville, their anti-immigration bill. Well, it's not really anti-immigration, but where they don't want to pay, they want to prohibit entities that are getting taxpayer dollars from funding illegal immigrants in some way, right? So I had problems with the bill. I did the review on that. You can go look it up, right? I dinged him just this morning. Okay, I'm not stopping. So if I see a Democrat saying or something or proposing a bill that I don't like, calling you out. If I see a Republican doing it, calling you out. Don't really care. All right. And if we could get a libertarian elected and they were doing that, I'll call them out too. right? So, like, it's not gonna be I'm not going to be any different, and I was very clear about it. And Mike Tremont, he told me something, he was like, "Dude, if you were to change your voice, if you were to adjust your positions so that you could come along, I wouldn't want you." Okay, cool, fair enough. Um, so what was the convincing thing? Well, to be honest with you, like, once I started looking into the RLC, I realized that they're actually fairly aligned with libertarian views. Not entirely, but pretty close. Like, and when I talked to the national officer, we talked about some different things, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this and this and there," and we were in agreement. And I was like, "Oh," like I was kind of surprised. I didn't realize this, and so, but what really brought me over when I had that conversation was learning that I actually don't have to register as a Republican. Now, I'm a little bit unclear on some things. Um, what I am clear on is I cannot hold any leadership positions unless I'm a registered Republican. That's cool. I'm fine with that because I don't want any. Like I am joining to be a body, like a warm body that can help out, and I'll get to that in a minute. Um, but I don't want leadership. So, all right, cool. I don't need leadership. I don't really want to join the Republican Party because I don't believe that I really align well with the Republican Party overall. I think that from what I can see, the RLC is almost like a miniature libertarian caucus within the Republican Party. So, um, I just it doesn't make sense for me to join like, for instance, foreign policy, I sharply, uh, uh, I have sharp disagreement with the Republican Party when it comes to foreign policy. I do not believe that we should, be like the world's police and all. And I know that things are changing a little bit, but but there's a large part of the Republican Party that still wants to kind of have this world's policeman. We're walking around, kind of like softly with the big stick in a sense. I know that was from a Democrat, but the point being, like, they want to have like a big, huge military show of force, kind of be like, hey, you better behave because we're the US. I'm not really a big fan of that. I oppose that. And there's some other things that I'm not a big fan of. We can talk about them here in a moment. I know I keep saying like this in the moment, this in a moment. So you might have to throw it in the chat and be like, hey, don't forget this. Um, so so for me, that was the big kicker. It was like, oh, okay, I can just put one foot in and then keep one foot. I've got like, should I say it? I'm gonna say it. My policy here is like wet foot, dry foot. If you get the if you get the reference. Um, so basically, I'm gonna have one foot in one party and one foot in the other party. Now, why would I do that? Um, I think that the LP, the Libertarian Party, is in disarray. And they have a lot of functional problems. And this is not some new like, if you've been watching me for a while, I've been saying this for years. I joined the party. Remember, I said I'm the one that joined the party in 2017, and I said, "I love this message, but your messengers stink, and I'm gonna show you how to message." Right after I learned how. And I went and I joined Toastmasters, and I've talked about Toastmasters repeatedly. I'm like, you all need to go to Toastmasters. You need to learn how to communicate. And that has been a staple of mine ever since. And whenever there's controversy, I fall back on what kind of communication skills do you have? For instance, when um, when somebody tweets something, some notable person or some affiliate tweets something kind of crazy, I have made the argument and said, look, I think one of the big disconnects in the party is that you've got, two major factions, if you will, and they each have their own vision of what constitutes quality messaging. But I think where they're kneecapped is that you've got group A, group B. Group A seems incapable of taking group B's messaging and spinning it to utilize it for their needs and vice versa. And I demonstrated that a couple of times with some New Hampshire tweets. I'm like, all right, here's what, like, when New Hampshire came out and they tweeted something about um what was it? Child labor. They were like, hey, we need to bring back child labor or something like that. And people were like flipping out because what happens? First thing that everybody thinks of when they hear child labor is they think children in the coal mines. So then I went out and I was like, all right, look, obviously nobody wants children in the coal mines. However, and then I fell back upon a story out of Chicago with a 13-year-old boy was out running with the wrong crowd at night instead of sleeping in his bed, getting ready, getting plenty of sleep so that he could go to school next day. And so I made the argument. I said, had Illinois, this was in Illinois, I said, had Illinois allowed children to work, he would have something to compete for his time other than just school, right? Like he would have had options. He'd be like, oh, I can go to school or I can go hang out on the streets. I can go have a job or I can go hang out on the streets. Clearly, school was not doing it. That was not creating a incentive enough, which means he had no other competing incentives. So what did he do? He went and hung out on the street. And guess what? It cost him his life. And all because Illinois says, okay, if you're under 14, you can't have a job. You basically can't have it's so limited, you can't have a job. I think technically you can, but it's extremely limited. They loosen up slightly when you're 14, and they loosen up some more once you get 16 and so on and so forth, right? And so I looked at it and I said, imagine if this kid had been like, oh, you want to go hang out at 2 a.m? Nah, man, I can't. I got to go to work. And the reason I said that at the time is because when it comes to work, a lot of people prioritize that in ways that they don't their own education. And so I looked at it and I said, there was no other incentive. So I don't want to get too bogged down in that story. Point being, like I was able to take a crazy New Hampshire tweet and spin that into a conversation that I was comfortable having. Right. And so I look at it and say, this is one of the problems that we have in the Libertarian Party is that people would rather argue and be like, Dave Smith or this person or that person, you need to say this, you need to denounce this. No, you need to get your ass in gear and go figure out how to communicate and build your voice or just promote the voices you like. This is and I've had a problem. I've had a problem with my own podcast, right? I am 524 episodes in. I love all the people that share my podcast, but it's not nearly enough of you. And maybe I'm being a little bit selfish here. I think that I do a great job of communicating ideas. Am I a Dave Smith level? Maybe not, right? But I think I do a good job. And I think I cover a vast number of topics in a great way, such that I should be getting more traction. And it's not just about me, it's about others. I should have like a Rolodex, I mean, if you will, a long list of libertarians who are putting together content, music, art, podcast, writing, poetry, whatever. I should be able to go out and find tons of stuff. Hey, man, this person wrote this. I should be overwhelmed. There should be so much content from libertarians that I'm actually having trouble sifting through to find what I like best that I could support and I could use on this show. But it's actually, unfortunately, kind of easy because because people are so busy fighting and arguing over what somebody else is doing. So the LP is in disarray. So while I like the message, I feel like the members are too busy engaging in infighting, right? Like I just recently, the Libertarian Party, the National Party, they put out some like 90 some page document on the prior chair. You'll notice that I didn't have much to say about it. Why? Because what I have observed and found is that libertarians, when they're mad at somebody, they gather up all this information and they publish it out. They'll do it one of two ways. They'll publish this whole deluge of information, or like all at once, and then you sift through it and you're like 80% of this is trash. Like that's what, if you go back to my episode where I was defending Karen Ann Harlos back in 2022, you'll find that I did a half an hour episode and they published like 300 some screenshots. And I went through every one of them and I was like, garbage, 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 garbage. And I found most of them to be garbage. And I was like, I have now spent all my time on garbage, on the quality of the argument, the quality of the evidence that was put forward in my opinion, was not something that anybody would want to be found guilty on that basis. Like, it was so weak, you would not want somebody to be like, "Yeah, you're guilty of this thing based on this quality of evidence." No, you wouldn't. And so I was really annoyed by that. But they at least put it all out. The other thing that libertarians will do, they will publish out in bits and pieces, and they'll be like, a little bit more, a little bit more. And then if you disagree with them, if you say, I don't think the evidence is really rising to the challenge here, they will be like, "Oh, so you support all." It's just like, okay, that's too much. So I didn't get into it because I was like, I've seen this play out. Now, as it turns out, apparently there was something there. Right? And that's fine. I'm not wrong, because I looked at it, I said, based on my experience of going through this exercise with libertarians, I no longer trust libertarians because you guys do not have any semblance of a standard when you're coming at somebody. It's just this barrage of coming at, coming at, coming at. And it's on all sides. So you guys are in disarray. All right. So that's my beef with the Libertarian Party. You're in disarray. You're way too focused on what other people do, a bunch of busybodies. And I have, for years, I have called people out and been like, "What are you doing in the party?" I told a story last night about a guy. He was out of Pennsylvania, and I saw him all over social media, all over Twitter. One day I just asked him, I said, "Dude, what's going on in your affiliate? What are you doing?" And he's like, "What?" And he got all huffy and he was like, "Well, I don't have to answer to you." And I'm like, "Well, no, you don't. But like, are you doing anything that I should be aware of that's kind of interesting? Like, is anything?" He's like, "People that know me know what I do." And I'm like, "Okay, I don't know you, dummy." Sorry, I don't mean to be so angry. I was like, "I don't know you, dummy. Like, I don't know what you're doing. I'm asking you. This is an honest question." And he refused to answer. Then he later rage quit the party. He like made this big, huge demonstration, yelling at people, cussing and carrying on, stomped up in the middle of his little crazy speech. He's like, "I was running for office." And I'm like, "But wait a minute, what?" And I was like, "You were running for office in the time when I asked you what you were doing. The first thing out of your mouth should have been like, 'Oh, dude, I'm running for office. Here's the position. Here's what I'm doing.'" Like, but no, he wanted to get all huffy as if like he didn't have to answer to me. If you're a candidate and you're running for office, that should be all you talk about. "Hey, how you doing? I'm Fred Jones. I'm running for office." "Oh, okay." Like, what I'm saying? And this is common. Um, Another problem that I've had, I will hold people to the same, standard. I'll be like, "All right, what is the metric? Can we count it?" And if it's between person A and person B, or group A and group B, when I'm holding group A accountable, group B loves it. They're like, "Oh yeah, you get them, DL." But when I hold group B accountable, they're like, "Whoa, whoa, who are you? How dare you?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm sorry, but this is the same standard that I held this other person to." Right. And I've had lots of back and forth with people that are in the party, external to the party, so on and so forth. So anyway, let's not belabor that. So you get the point. I think the party is in disarray. We need to grow up. What about the Republican Party? Well, I'm not a big fan of a lot of things about the Republican Party. So, what would cause me to put like a wet foot, dry foot, like one foot in their party? When I started looking into the Republican Liberty Caucus, I realized that they're actually pretty closely aligned with me. I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." So that's not bad. Like, and I can respect liberty Republicans. That doesn't, and I've said before, that doesn't mean I give them a pass, right? That doesn't mean I'm not going to ever say maybe we should run a challenger against them, right? Like that's still on the table. Okay. And I've talked about my criteria for how. Um, so, but I would like to see more Thomas Masseys. It, if Congress, if the House had like 10% of them were Thomas Massey, just 10%, Congress would be way better, right? And it's a pipe dream to say 10%. So I would like to see more of that. But also, because the party is in disarray, I don't think that they can properly challenge the duopoly. And what's happening right now is that we are getting closer and closer to all out tyranny. And I'm like, we got to stop this bleeding. And right now, the LP is not in a position to do that. They're just not. So what do we do? So my theory is like, all right, I'll join the RLC because I actually align with their values mostly, not entirely. And same thing with the Libertarian Party. I don't agree with everything in our platform or the values that some people say I should have. It's not entirely, but it's mostly. So it's good enough. So for the Republican Party, I'm like, all right, there is an argument that Donald Trump is in his final term. When he leaves, there's going to be a vacuum. I think that's true, right? Because at the end of the day, who can fill what Trump is doing? Nobody. There's not a single, you can't name a single Republican. I'm not saying who can be in the position, who can run for president. What I'm saying is who can have that charisma, if you will, the attitude, the bombastic nature, all of those things. There isn't somebody. There isn't like he's there. There isn't somebody that's going to come behind Trump that we know of right now that can follow along and basically do what he did and carry on the vision, his vision. So Trump basically has this term to get it right. Like that's like if he can accomplish everything he wants, he will have radically changed the Republican Party. So enter the Republican Liberty Caucus. If we can, like you got the midterms coming up, right in 26, and so if the Republican Liberty Caucus can at least stave off, anything worse, then that is an assistance. That's an assist to the Libertarian Party. And for me, this is how I explained it last night. I said, because they were like, "Well, why don't you just go all in?" And I said, "Well, I don't align nearly as much with the Republican Party currently as a whole as I would say just the one caucus. However, I do align with the Libertarian Party mostly, right? Again, mostly on both of them. So for me, I looked at it. I'm like, do I really want to be all in on a caucus when I've got an entire party that I could be all in on? I would rather be all in on the party. Why? Because a caucus is going to have to try to fight the whole party to get their views, right? To get what they want. And so I look at it and I say, I don't know that that's going to be possible unless the RLC could manage a takeover in the same way that the Mises Caucus took over the Libertarian Party. But even then, they failed. Okay? They failed. Period. And they can be mad at me. Hold it, but they did not accomplish what they said they were going to do, right? We did not see the grand decentralization movement that we were promised. We did not see a lot of donors coming in that we were promised, right? So I look at it and I say, I think that the best opportunity that the RLC has is to hopefully stop the bleeding, yeah, or at least limit the bleeding, slow it down. Hopefully that can happen while the LP is getting their act together. And then if and when the LP gets its act together, then perhaps they can put forward a better challenge. Right. And there's a lot of dynamics. We could have an argument, but that's basically my thinking. Now, backlash. Let's talk about this. What I was anticipating was a lot of people online coming at me, maybe digging up every tweet that I had that they think shows that I'm being a hypocrite or something like that. And I'm not. I don't think I'm being a hypocrite because when I said be all in on the party, I have said multiple times that applies to officers. I have left all of my officer positions. I am now a regular member, and I've always held that regular members can do whatever they want. I said that even on the Chase campaign when he was running. I said, look, if you believe that Chase does not align with you, that's great. Like, I'm not really, I mean, I don't think that's great, but like, if you, that's fine. Like, if you believe that, and if you want to support Donald Trump or if you want to support Kamala Harris, fine, right? If they've earned your vote, fine. Chase has to earn your vote, just like he has to earn everybody else's vote, just like Trump has to earn votes or had to earn votes. And then Kamala Harris had to earn votes, so on and so forth. Okay. That's what I said at the time. But I was like, look, but if you're an officer, you have one of two options. You either support the candidates that are within the scope of your responsibility, or you stay quiet. Like you could just be like, yeah, I'm not going to say anything about this candidate because I don't particularly care for him. And if you were an officer in the party and you just happen to believe that Chase Oliver was not the right person to represent the party, which is fine. A lot of people felt that way. Then fine. You don't have to vote for him. But I do believe that as an officer, you have an obligation to at a minimum be quiet, and beyond that, outwardly support the candidate. Okay. So I don't think I'm being inconsistent. But I assume that there would be some backlash. Honestly, I think Mike Tremont ended up taking a lot of the backlash. And so I didn't really receive any. There was a few comments that people made. They were trying to point out, they were like, they were being snarky, and they were like, oh, they would retweet something I said, from like 6 months ago or something like that. And they're like, oh, uh, you know, enjoy your stay at the GOP or something like that. And I know what they were doing. And that's fine. I didn't care. But I will say this. I had one friend who was pretty upset, and that one caught me by surprise. Um, that one, I had to really think about that one, because I was like, damn. I was like, I did not think about this, because to be honest with you, when I was thinking about it, I was like, all right, what's the backlash going to be? I thought the backlash would be exclusively just libertarians being libertarians. Oh, look at him. Let's go dig up all his tweets and see if we can't dunk on him. That's what I thought would happen. And that really didn't happen. So that particular person that I'm talking about really caught me by surprise. And I felt pretty bad about it. I really did. And I'm not going to get into the details because I don't want to talk about, private conversations. But, so there was exactly one person that I actually felt bad about how things played out. So, I'm fine with the regular backlash. Like I've said before, if you put yourself out there like I do, you've got a podcast, you're out on social media, you're trying to grow your presence. If you're doing all that, guess what? You're gonna have to take some bullets. You're gonna have to take your licks. That's the way it goes. I had it yesterday. In fact, yesterday is funny. The news came out yesterday, and that one actually didn't get a lot of attention. I happened to make a tweet about New Hampshire pushing back and challenging them, and that one blew up. And it really blew up when the white nationalists found it, and they all wanted to come in and talk trash to me. So, and maybe if we have time, we can get into that, but I doubt it. So, um, so for me, I saw the backlash. I was expecting it in one way, and it wasn't, and it didn't come that way, and that's fine. I think some people probably bit their tongue, out of courtesy, or maybe they just didn't want to get into it, or whatever. So I think there are some people that are probably not happy with me, but just haven't said anything. Uh, for those people that might say, DL, I think you're being a hypocrite, or DL, you shouldn't be doing this. You should be full on. I'm not like, I know this is gonna sound bad. I'm not too concerned with your anger over that, because I think we all have to make decisions, and somebody somewhere, maybe even multiple somebodies, are not gonna like your decision, right? And that's part of being a libertarian. Like, we have to make decisions. It's part of being an adult. You make decisions, and people aren't gonna like it, right? And that's just a fact of life. So I was prepared for that, but I was not prepared to upset good friends, or a good friend. Um, so that's where we are. All right. So what extent, what is, what, am- well, I'm going to remain in the LP. I am not going to seek out any leadership positions out of either one of them, because that would not be appropriate. Like, if you're in leadership, you're all in whichever party you're in. If you're just a regular member, in my opinion, you do what you want. Right. And that's the way I'm going to approach it. And I'm approaching this as if it is a coalition. Like, I'm looking and I'm saying, all right, the RLC, they have views that I can align with. They also, they also could use a little assistance. So perhaps it's worthwhile to be added to their ranks, so that they get a little bit more, more in number, and perhaps they can be a little bit more influential in their own party. Now, do I have any illusions that that like libertarians are gonna join them in one way or another, and then all of a sudden the RLC is just gonna be like some powerhouse? No, I do not. I do not believe that, right? But that doesn't mean that they can't accomplish some good things. Right, and that's what I'm here for. I'm here to say, "All right, let's accomplish some good things, and let's see if I can't assist you," because in assisting them, I believe that I am actually helping the LP. Because if I were to put it, like, if you're looking at my hands here, I think the Republican Party and the Democrat Party are like this close together, right? They're like right here. Then over here, you have the Libertarian Party far away. And I think what's happening is that gap is getting further and further away in terms of power and influence, right? We're already way behind. And I think the way that the duopoly is going, they're putting us even further behind and further behind. Something has to stop that. And it's not going to be the Libertarian Party. So what will it be? Right. And like we've had calls to boot out Thomas Massey, Rand Paul, and like these are some of the guys that us libertarians can at least respect on some level. Maybe one more than the other, maybe sometimes not. But overall, we have a general respect for them. And we would generally agree that if Congress were full of Rand Pauls and Thomas Masseys, we would be better off, right? Would it be anywhere near our libertarian utopia? Probably not. But would we be better off than we are now? Absolutely. So the goal here is to assist the RLC with my participation at a minimum, hopefully slow down the march toward tyranny within the Republican Party and give the Libertarian Party a fighting chance. Now, let me before I go on, let me jump into some comments here, right? Let's talk some comments and catch up because I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna do a full on episode here today without an intermission. We're gonna do that. Let's see what we got here. I got a fair number. All right, so so that Liberty lady says, my question to Tomat yesterday, and Larry asked him, scenario/local level, establishment stooge GOP candidate versus a very liberty-minded LP candidate. For the people who actually join the LP, they they cannot support the LP. Ask the people who got in trouble for supporting Eric Parker. So I am avoiding that as far as I know. Now, if you are, if you have joined the Republican Party, like as a member, you're a now registered Republican. I don't know what the rules are for registered members. I do know that here in Jacksonville, Eric Parker, the Libertarian candidate, did get a lot of support from Republicans, and it got like 19 of them in trouble. I think they almost got kicked out of their org, but not quite. I think they managed to escape getting kicked out, but it came close. For me, and I was asked this question too last night, they were like, all right, DL, let's say there's a Libertarian candidate and there's a Liberty Republican candidate. Who are you supporting? I'm going to look and I'm going to say which one best represents me. That representation is going to be not only in policy, but also how well they can communicate those ideas. Because think of it this way. Let's see. I'm trying to make this simple. Let's say you have 3 criteria. You have their philosophy or their principles. You have their charisma, and you have their articulation, and you're judging a candidate based on those 3 things. If a candidate is 70% in all 3 of those, I think they are better than if they're 100% on the principle and 50% on the other 2 with charisma and their ability to communicate, their articulation. Why do I think that? Because if you have all the great ideas, but you can't even communicate them so that people understand them and want to see them implemented, then it doesn't do you any good. So I would rather, so for me, I'm going to balance it out, not necessarily on those explicit criteria, but I'm just trying to give you an idea. Like I'm going to be looking at it like, okay, what principles are you on? Do I support those? There are some things that are going to be off limits to me, right? And they are going to be deal breakers. There are other things that I'm going to be like, maybe I'll begrudgingly support it. That's both libertarian and Republican, okay? Or anybody for that matter. There are some things that off limit, they're going to be a deal breaker. There are other things that I'm going to be like, all right, well, what's the rest of your positions? What are the rest of your positions like? And I will judge it on it. Because again, I am now a regular member. I can pick and choose how, for whatever reason that I want. That is a position I've held for other people. I will hold it for myself, right? So what will I do? I will evaluate those 2 candidates. If I feel the Libertarian candidate is the better candidate, and one thing that I don't use as a metric is, do I think they're going to be, do I think they can be or are going to win? I don't think of it that way. So that's not one of my criteria. My criteria is just going to be like, would I be willing to stand shoulder to shoulder with that candidate in a photo op and to be like, yeah, that person was awesome. I really like them. I think they did a good job communicating. I think they had some great ideas, and is it such that if they have some bad ideas, I'm not going to have trouble defending them because the bad ideas are so bad, right? So if that's a Republican, then that's the Republican. If that's the Libertarian, that's the Libertarian, right? And that's how I'm going to approach it. Now, if anybody says, DL, you are a member, you have to do this, we demand your loyalty. No, that's it. The answer is no. My loyalty will not be demanded like that. I don't play that game. I don't do it based on party, not as a regular member. Now, again, if you're a leadership, I think you have a fiduciary duty. I think you have an elected duty to do that, right? You actually signed up for it. You said, I would like to be a leader. I would like to accomplish these things. People that are voting for you to be that leader, they are expecting that of you. You have that obligation. I don't. And so I will do as I damn well please, right? That's how I'm going to approach it. So, and again, so far, I've never had to pick between a Liberty Republican and a Libertarian. But if it comes down to it, I will do as I see fit. And I will hopefully, make a convincing argument why one should be supported over the other, regardless of who I'm talking to, right? Because I think there are Liberty Republicans that are better candidates than a Libertarian. And I think there are Libertarians that would make a better candidate than a Republican or even a Democrat, right? Liberty Republican, whatever. So I'm going to judge it based on that. And the criteria is more than just your fault. I think that's a problem that we have in the party, the Libertarian Party. We have a lot of people that are just like, they have a great message. They believe all the things that I believe they should believe. So therefore, I'm supporting them, no holds barred. And I think that's a poor way to get good representatives, because that's a great way to get people that maybe they can say all the right things in terms of what they believe. But when it comes to communicating it to a broader world, they fumble and they stammer like some boy trying to talk to a girl. Well, we don't need that. Are we trying to push forward liberty or not? All right, I'm sorry, I'm waxing long here. I'm supposed to be addressing comments. Time Surfing Alien says, people want lip service, not facts or sensible dialogue. LP requires a little independent thought. It's true. I agree. And I will not do lip service. I will do my best to deliver facts and sensible dialogue. You won't always agree with me, and that's fine. But hopefully, even if you disagree with me, you'll walk away thinking, well, he at least had a fairly strong argument, but I think here's some significant weaknesses that he needs to address. Hopefully, you don't walk away and going, man, that dude can't think, his way out of a wet paper bag. Let's see what else we got in here. Let's see here. Let's see here. Oh, okay. I'm looking at comments and I'm trying to decipher which ones are directed toward me, which ones are just conversation in the chat. Let's see here. Yes, I agree with this. Carving some time out for donating time to You Are the Power. Organization like that do more than any political party. That is true. In some ways, sadly true. I think it's great that You Are the Power is so effective, and I would tell people to support them. And I think that libertarians need to look and say, all right, that an organization like that is kind of the standard for what we should be delivering for what we do, right? Let's see what else we got here. So, Time Surfing Alien points out, educating the general public on what libertarianism actually is would be the best course of action. Yeah, I think that is a great course of action, and that's what I try to do on this show. That's why I'm putting so much energy into the show, because I think that I do a pretty good job of breaking down libertarian ideas. Are they perfect? No. Could somebody who is, read all the philosophy books about libertarianism, could they bind me up in a debate? Perhaps. Could they find some nuanced or some hypothetical that I would have trouble answering? Perhaps. But my goal is to talk to everyday average folk and just communicate to them and say, like, look, it kind of starts with self-ownership. We believe in don't hurt other people, don't steal their stuff. And then we go from there. Right. So, let's see. Yes, that Liberty lady points out my problem is right now, Trump and MAGA want to primary Massey and Paul. It's true. And I think that an organization like the RLC is going to be very useful in ensuring that they don't. And I've seen people online, they're like, oh, Thomas Massey won the last time. He beat AIPAC. Let's be clear. He did beat AIPAC, but AIPAC has lots of money and they can determine, you know what? If we spend a little bit more, if we do things differently, we can beat him the next time. So do not rest on your laurels. And this is what I'm trying to do is like, I'm trying to say like, look, I want to make sure that we don't lose the Liberty Republicans. Like if the Liberty Republicans get booted, if they lose their seat in Congress, I want them to lose their seat to somebody who I think would be even better for liberty, not somebody that's worse. I'm trying to not backtrack, right? So I have said like, hey, somebody like Thomas Massey, he is not above having a libertarian challenger. I just have particular criteria for who that challenger should be. Not necessarily as a specific person, but like what qualities I am looking for in order to support a person like that. But in the meantime, they should not lose their seat to somebody who is less friendly to liberty. Let's see here. Let's see. That's a good comment. It's not a horse race. We are not betting on winners. I agree. And I am trying not to utilize who do I think is going to win. If I go to a horse race and I'm putting my money down, yeah, I'm going to put it down on who I think I can win. And unless I have some personal relationship with the jockey, I probably am not, I'm probably going to explicitly make this decision on who I'm supporting based on who's going to bring me money in. But in a political party, I need, when it comes to candidates, I want to know who can most effectively represent me. That includes more than just what philosophy you have. Because if you can't speak, if you're just like, bleh, if you're like Rothbard one time said this back in 1972, blah, 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 everybody's like, who's Rothbard, right? And then you're just going on and on. And you're like, well, you need to read all these books like I have. And then you're not communicating well. And I have no use for you. So let's see. Good morning to you, Cassandra. Let's see what else we got here. AIPAC needs to be removed from this country. Gnostic Nomad says, I'm just going to say that if AIPAC ended up losing all their funding and had to go bankrupt and never was in politics, I would sleep even better. Just saying. Let's see. Let's see what else we got. This is interesting. Time Surfing Alien says most people would find they are libertarian if they would just investigate the platform, but most just treat it as a team sport. I agree with the second half. I don't know if most people would find that they're necessarily libertarian, but I've said this before that I don't really need everybody to be a libertarian. I just need you to accept some of our ideas, maybe vote for some of our candidates, right? Because I get it. Not everybody's going to, there are some people that do want a big military presence all across the world because they do believe that with that, America will be safer. I do not. I believe there are different things that we have evidence for that would say this will make us safer. So I kind of disagree in that sense, but I don't begrudge anybody that believes that. Like I know some libertarians that get all bent out, like, oh, that's a dumb idea. Yeah, I just disagree. That's fine. At the end of the day, hopefully those that believe that will join with me in the idea of saying, let's at least get some of our ideas adopted and let's at least get some of our candidates elected. That's cool. I think that's a great way to find where we can agree. And then we don't have to spend all of our time arguing about, do people, do most of the people, are they going to be, are they really libertarian or are they not? I don't think that's an argument that we need to have. We can just call that a disagreement, shake hands, drink our beer, and go on about our way. I will address the comment here on X from Susan. She says, "Best of luck to you. Thank you so much. But don't forget, I am still remaining in the Libertarian Party. I just will not be in leadership. I'm taking a break from leadership. I need a break. I got a lot going on. Got this podcast. I have a 6-year-old. If you have a 6-year-old, like everything you do is twice as long. You're like, all right, it's time to put on your socks. If you need to leave, if it takes me 2 minutes to put on socks and shoes, right? And we need to leave at like say 8:00. That means at like 7:45, I need to be like, put your socks and shoes on. Because what's going to hear? We're going to hear, okay, Dad. And then 3 minutes later, I'm like, hey, put your socks and shoes on, because he's still playing with his toy. Okay, Dad, I will. Just a second. And a few minutes later, he goes over, grabs a sock, but then starts playing again with another toy, right? So everything takes longer. And so now with the 6-year-old, I have even less time, because the time that we would normally do things is doubled. So fun times with that. Let's see. Nothing on Facebook here. All right. Yeah, this is interesting. You can tell people that you believe in the Constitution and they agree. You mention Libertarian Party and they shut down a lot of times. And I think the reason for that is because we have not developed our communication skills such that we make it sound more appealing. At the end of the day, that's all it amounts to. You know what I mean? What you're trying to do, I'm not trying to convince people that they're libertarian. I'm trying to convince people that my ideas would make them better off. It's the whole Reagan thing, right? Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Well, we're not in a position to ask that question. But what we can do is get people to think and be like, get them to suggest to them effectively that, hey, if I supported this idea and it went through, I would be better off. Because the moment somebody thinks they're better off with any idea, it doesn't matter, that's the one they're pursuing. That's what we need to do. We just need to communicate to people and be like, look, you will be better off with this idea. And we have to make that argument, and we have to be convincing. We're not. All right. I'm going to get back to this, and we're going to talk a few more things. So one question I was asked to me is like, what happens if they don't like how radical you are? I mean, okay, too bad. Come as you are. I'm radical. All right. Now, for some libertarians, I'm not radical enough. For other libertarians, I might be too radical. Right. So I'm already dealing with that. And to be honest with you, I've been the black sheep of of every organization and all my peers that I've ever been in. I've always been a black sheep. It's just the nature, right? I think for me, I probably really always was a libertarian in the obstinate sense. Like I've always been that way. Like if you were to reach out to my mama in heaven, and you'd be like, what was he like as a kid? She'd be like, because this is what she told me one day. She said, you were the kind of kid that if we told you not to do something, you went and did it explicitly because we told you not to do it. Like, and then when you got in trouble, you went and did it again. Like that was the kind of kid that I was, a hell raiser. I've got stories upon stories that I could tell you. Here's another one that people kind of came at me with. They're like, dude, this has been tried before. You're not doing anything novel. You're right. And I'm not making that argument. I did not say that I'm doing anything novel. I'm just saying, like, this is me almost looking at it like, I think this is a Hail Mary, right? This is me saying, all right, the LP is not in a position to do what it should be doing, right? It's not in a position to be effective in the way that I think it could be. So what are my options? Well, I don't entirely want to leave it because I do believe in the party. I do believe in the ideas that it holds. I don't entirely agree with the Republicans. I think we are distinct from Republicans, but I do think that the RLC is a fairly close fit. Like if there was no Libertarian Party in existence, then I would probably be in the RLC full on. Like, and that's again, if there was no Libertarian Party. So for me, I look at it and I say, I know that it's been tried before, but you also got to think of it this way. And this is not to ding anybody. Okay. I'm not pointing the finger at anybody in particular that might use this argument, but consider that libertarians have a reputation for being obstinate, difficult, and hard-headed. And on top of all of that, not always being good communicators, right? So if that's the case, then yeah, of course it's been ineffective in the past. right? Like, of course, it's been tried before unsuccessfully. So perhaps this is an opportunity for me to see if I'm correct that with a little bit better communication style, we can make more advancements with other people, right? We can be more influential in the world around us. Maybe I'm wrong, and that's fine. We gotta, but I'm gotta try something. And so I'm not looking at this as like, oh, look, it's a new novel idea. I'm looking at this as I am hopefully different than many of the people that tried it before. Hopefully, between that and the fact that you've got a Republican Party that I think even for the RLC is went wayward. Hopefully, all of that combined will make the situation a little bit more amenable to somebody like me coming in and working with them and having my voice heard. Now, will they always agree with me? No, of course not. That would be silly to think that, no matter how great of a communicator I was. But hopefully, all the things that are at play right now will lead to a better outcome, but they might not. I might get in there and they might be like, dude, I heard you on your podcast and you said this. I don't like you. Could happen. It's very possible. And if it does, well, that's the way it goes, right? That's how it goes. Another one was, hey, I had this bad experience. So again, kind of falls in the same, it's been tried before. Your bad experience could be a result of many factors. It could be that maybe at that time you weren't as good at communicating as you are now, right? Hopefully you are better at communicating than you were then. And unless then was like 5 months ago. But like if you tried it years ago, hopefully you have grown since then. Okay? And you're better and you've learned some things. So then if you were doing this again, your experience might be a little bit better on the pure fact that you are a better person. Like if you had asked me in 2017 to join the RLC and communicate libertarian ideas, that would like I could do that, but I would be fumbling a lot and I wouldn't be very good at it. But now in 2025, now that I've got 8 years of experience communicating, I should be much, much better. And I should have a better handle on reading the room, understanding what people are looking for, how to communicate an idea, how to get around objections, how to temper some, ideas, some maybe incorrect ideas about what I believe. I should be better at all of that. So 2017, me joining the Republican Party, or not Republican Party, the Republican Liberty Caucus, 2017 me should not be as good at communicating and being effective than 2025 me, right? So this is why I don't necessarily look at somebody else's bad experience. The other thing is the environment is different. So hopefully the environment again leads to a better experience. And then also I'm just a different person, right? Like I have been in places where I swear to you that I have said something and uh, and that like, it just like, went on fell on deaf ears. And then somebody else said the same damn thing, like, a month later, and people are like, "Yeah, yeah, that's right." And I'm like, "I said that a month ago." Sometimes a different personality just gets different results. It's the way it is. Like, sometimes my wife that happens with my wife. I'll tell her something, and she'll be like, "Yeah, I disagree." And then one of her friends will tell her the same thing, like, 5 months later, and she'll be like, "Dude, you know what so and so just told me?" And I'm like, "Tell me," and she's telling me, and then I'm like, I said that 6 months ago." Like, why was it not good then and it's good now? Well, because maybe it's a different person. Maybe the way that it came across was a little bit, more inviting, any number of reasons, right? But sometimes different people get different results. It's the way it is. So I can't let that stop me. Um, let me go back to this, this backlash. Now, at least one person was upset that I didn't communicate this ahead of time, and that's fair. Um, there are some things that I won't be able to tell you, because somebody's asked me to keep it quiet. Now, in my opinion, I would have been fine, personally, just me saying, "Yeah, I'm thinking about this," and maybe even have a conversation with the audience and saying, "What do you guys think?" and weighing it out. But I was asked to keep it quiet. So here's my rule of thumb. If somebody asks me to not say anything, I don't tell anybody. I don't even tell my wife unless it could impact my relationship. So, for example, if I knew a woman and she was like, "Man, I got the hots for you, and I would love to take you home with me," I'm gonna be like, "Whoa, whoa," and then I'm like, "No," and then if she's like, "Okay, well, don't tell your wife," sorry, that we've already, I mean, that's going to happen. Why? Because it could impact my relationship. I'm not going to allow something to crop up later that might harm my relationship with my wife. So in that particular case, I would tell my wife. In other cases, if it doesn't impact my relationship, my wife knows, she doesn't get told. And so let me tell you a story, because this is how I've been for many, many years. Um, when I was, say 25, 6, 7, somewhere around there, I was previously married. And I had a good friend reach out to me about something private to him. I think it was about his relationship. I can't remember exactly. But he told me something in private and confidence. And he was like, yeah, I went by Dan at that time. He said, Dan, don't tell anybody. Okay. So then like a week or two later, him and I and my wife at that time, we were all having like lunch or dinner or something together at a restaurant. And he starts to tell her about this thing that he told me in confidence. And she looked at him really puzzled, like, and then he looked at her puzzled, like, and he was like, Dan didn't tell you? And she's like, no. And he looked and he's like, you didn't tell your wife? And then she goes, oh, she said, did you tell him not to tell anyone? And he was like, well, yeah. And she's like, anyone means anyone for him. And he was like, not even, and she's like, not even me. Like this is a quality that I've had. And part of it is because I talk so damn much and I say so much that I have crafted rules for myself to keep myself out of trouble. So, for instance, I never ever like will call a woman, particularly my wife, but any woman, a bitch. Right? Why is that? Because I don't have to remember if I did it or not. Um, so if my wife now were ever to be like, you know how wives are always like, remember that one time you said this thing to me, and they're like trying to bring it up. Don't pretend, wives, you know you do that. But if my wife ever said, like, remember the time that you called me a bitch, I would be like, that never happened. And I know it never happened, not because I can remember it, not doing it, but because I know that is not something I do. It's just off the table. It doesn't happen. Right. So this is the same reason why I I don't lie, because I don't want to have to try to keep track of what did I say. If I only tell the truth, guess what? I only have to worry about repeating the truth as I understood it. And so if there's any inconsistencies, they are minor details that should not affect the overall conversation, right? Same thing goes with private stuff. If you tell me not to tell anybody, and I don't tell anybody, and so I don't have to remember who did I tell, right? So this is how it works. Now, in this particular case, I did actually tell my wife because she hates politics and blah, blah, blah. And I was letting her know about my activities because this does kind of affect my family. Like, what am I doing? Where am I putting my energy and my time? So I did let her know in this particular case. But typically, when somebody says, don't tell anybody anything, I don't tell anybody. Right. And these are the rules and like my son just yesterday, he was eating dinner, and he would, how 6-year olds are. They're like, I don't want to eat my vegetables. I just want to eat the meat and the French fries or the rice or the whatever he finds that's more tasty. And so I said, son, I was like, don't you want to grow up to be bigger than your daddy? And I was like, your daddy didn't eat his vegetables, and look how big he got to grow up. And of course, that's a total lie. Like, I mean, that's not has nothing to do with why. So then I followed it up with, I said, okay, well, that's actually not true, but I'm telling you that, and I just like, I basically lied. And then I told him that, yes, I'm actually lying, but you still need to eat your vegetables, right? Like, I don't like lying. I don't like having to try to remember what I said to whom. So I've crafted all these rules for me to live by, and they serve me pretty well. So for anybody that feels like, hey, like even if you're just a standard audience member and maybe we're not very close, if you feel kind of disappointed, like, hey, I wish you would have brought it, told me, my apologies. More apologies to those closer to me, of course. But these are the things that I do to protect myself and keep me out of trouble. So hopefully everybody recognizes that, and then you understand, and you know that it's not personal. This is me keeping myself in line. So that's I just want to kind of reiterate that. Now I did say we'll get to this, we'll get to that and I sadly forgot what I said. So I don't know if I'm just going to leave it open. I'm going to look in the comments. And if you have any last minute comments, questions, concerns, ideas, thoughts, whatever, post them in the chat now. We'll put this music on here. I'll scroll through and I'll answer anything remaining. If you remember what I said we would get to, I'll talk about that at this point. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and get this show out because it turns out yet again, hey, it's going to be a short show and it's not. So let's see here. Go back here. Let's see here. I don't know. The Free Staters are gaining more control of the state. Oh, the state every day. I was going to say the party. I don't know why I read party. They might be. I don't have any beef with the Free Staters. I do have some beef sometimes with New Hampshire, but not really New Hampshire, like the party itself, the affiliate, and not really even the people. I just think that their messaging is so far out there that it makes it very difficult for their peers to work with. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people do fall into intellectual laziness. And rather than say, okay, let me figure out, a good argument to this, they just kind of fall back on, they're like, oh, you're racist, you're bigot. And I don't know. I don't feel that's true in most cases. I mean, I'm sure there's probably some bigot up there somewhere. But I think a lot of times they're literally just shit posting and they're just, they're getting attention. Right. And they may have a purpose for it. I don't probably agree with it, but the Free Staters, they are doing some good things up there. And I've seen now that Ben, who is the chair of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, he will sometimes post and be like, this bill was a result of Free State work and this action and stuff like that. And here's some pictures of what we did. And, here's us having fun. And I think that's good. And I think every state should do that. That would be phenomenal if state parties were focusing more on here's what we're doing, here are the things that we're accomplishing, rather than trying to carve out their niche piece of the pie for how they like messaging. And I feel like right now, a lot of what we see online is mostly just like, we're going to show you about messaging. Ha, ha, ha. We're better than you are because we're more principled, blah, blah. I don't think that, whatever. That might get you some clicks and some likes, but at the end of the day, it's not advancing liberty. What advances liberty is communicating to people the ideas and showing them how these are some ideas. Like, did you like this idea? Well, guess what? The Free Staters had a role in that. Oh, wow, you did? Maybe you guys aren't so bad after all, right? That kind of thing, I think, is gonna really grow or advance liberty. Let's see here. What else we got? Bend in New Hampshire. Sorry, I'll stay in sunny Alabama. Time Surfer Galen says, that's how I feel about Florida. They're like, dude, why don't you move up to New Hampshire? And I'm like, fix your weather. like I like your mountains. I think it's great. I love cycling in the mountains. I love rock climbing. I enjoy hiking and stuff like that. So you might think that I would like living in New Hampshire, and I actually like the greenery. I just don't like the cold weather. Once it drops below like 70 degrees, dude, I turn into like a little schoolgirl that's whiny. Like that's just how I become. So it's better off that I'm in Florida, because if I did move to New Hampshire, they would just get exhausted with me bitching about the weather. What, like 4 or 5 months out of the year? They'd be like, dude, can you go argue with some libertarians? Please do something different. That's what they would actually want me to do, some infighting, to give them a break from arguing about the weather and whining about it. So better off that I stay here in Florida. Let's see what else we got here. There are 7 million Alabamians, I think I got that right, that need convincing to change the Republican Party or turn libertarian. Well, looks like you have a lot of work for your time. Hope you have a lot of time on your hand. Okay. Sorry, that was corny. Let's see what else. Let's see here. I'm trying to weigh out what's the conversation between you guys and what I can address. It looks like you guys are talking about some food stuff. Now you're making me hungry, so I guess I'm going to have to wind this show down now for sure. Let's see here. Sounds inviting. Gnostic Nomad. I'm invested in Alabama here since 1975. Own my own land, not going anywhere. That's awesome. I love it. Own some land. Get you some land, folks. Oh, this is good. Gnostic Nomad. Well, I assume now, and maybe I missed it, but I assume that Gnostic Nomad is up in New Hampshire. We just passed the Parents' Bill of Rights, which give the parents the final say on their child's education. That's awesome wherever it is. I think that's great. Do we have that in Florida? I think we have something like that in Florida, but not quite. Let's see. And that is huge. Yes. Cassandra says, thanks. Keep pushing liberty. To everybody. If you are pushing liberty, thanks to you for pushing liberty. All right, folks. I think that's about it. Let's see here. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh, wow. I spent 20 years working on communication towers all over the world in all weather. I'll stay sunny. I agree with you. Time. I would not want to be like, those people that climb the towers and they go up like some hundreds of feet and then they get like, I don't know, they get enough money to live on for like 6 months or something crazy. That almost seems fun. But then I remember, number one, I'm slightly afraid of heights, but I would still do it if I felt necessary. But more importantly, I feel like it'd be really cold up there and I would hate that. I would be so miserable. I would go up there one time and I'd be like, to hell with this. So, okay. Yes. Gnostic Nomad said that was in New Hampshire. All right, cool. All right, folks. Well, I'm out. Hopefully I've explained myself well enough. And hopefully everybody, I missed a comment here. Let's see. There's a comment on X. I apologize. So there's a lot of screens I've tried to keep up. So Basic Beach. I almost said it wrong. And it would have been unintentional, I promise you. Said, I did feel frustrated interacting with some libertarians in the party. I'm curious to see how the RLC will function. Best of luck. Thank you. And again, maybe it'll work out. Maybe it won't. Right. I'm under no illusion. I'm going in there kind of as a Hail Mary and we will see. But I am keeping my libertarian roots strong and I will not back down from anybody. So if somebody comes by and like, DL, you can't talk about immigration in the way you're talking about it. Nope. I will still talk about it. My show, I do what I want. That's how I roll. Ask my wife. She's heard that so many times. I do what I want. All right, folks, I'm out of here. Have a good one. I will see you tomorrow. Since today is Wednesday and we were supposed to do an update on the weekly 47, we will do that tomorrow. So look forward tomorrow to talking about what Donald Trump is up to. But for now, we're going to head on out. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer my Rumble channel, you can go to youtube.libertydad.com or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you are there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. You can also become part of the community by heading over to libertydad.locals.com. Remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. But for now, I'm out.